Exodus chapter 16. Exodus chapter 16. Turn with me there. And we have, I said it earlier as I was praying, I've loved this semester and this year with you. And we've got tonight and just 2 more weeks. But that means I only get to preach to you 2 more times. I love this opportunity. And I'm so thankful for what I get to do. Page 84. And we're kicking off a brand new series tonight called Along Obedience. And what we're hoping to see as we round out our semester and head into the summer is that in an age of instant satisfaction, it's difficult at times for us to grasp that discipleship to Jesus is a journey of a lifetime. We live in a world where 2-day delivery from Amazon is not fast enough. We want things and we want them now, in this moment, in this instant. In this series, we're offered the encouragement that God is with us for the long haul as we hear again Jesus' invitation to pursue lifelong obedience. Exodus chapter 16, verse 1 is where we're jumping in tonight. We're going to read down through verse 15. It says this: The entire Israelite community departed from Elim and came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they had left the land of Egypt. The entire Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat and ate all the bread we wanted. Instead, you brought us into the wilderness to make this whole assembly die of hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you. The people are going to go out each day and gather enough for that day. This way I will test them to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on the other days." So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "This evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the Lord's glory, because he has heard your complaints about him. For who are we that you would complain about us?" Moses continued, "The Lord will give you meat to eat this evening and all the bread you want in the morning, for he has heard the complaints that you are raising against him. Who are we? Your complaints are not against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your complaints.'" As Aaron was speaking to the entire Israelite community, they turned towards the wilderness, and there in a cloud the Lord's glory appeared. The Lord spoke to Moses, "I have heard the complaints of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, in the morning you will eat bread until you are full. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." So at evening quail came and covered the camp. In the morning there was a layer of dew all around the camp, and when the layer of dew evaporated, there were fine flakes on the desert surface, as fine as frost on the ground. And when the Israelites saw it, they asked one another, "What is it?" Because they didn't know what it was. And Moses told them, "It's the bread that the Lord has given you to eat." This series, kind of the framing of these 2 conversations, are around a quote that was originally said by Friedrich Nietzsche and was kind of adopted and borrowed by Eugene Peterson, that defines the journey of discipleship to Jesus as this: a long obedience in the same direction. It reminds us that the Christian life is a journey, that good things take time. One day, if you get married, weddings are great. I get to perform ceremonies at weddings every once in a while, and it's a really great honor. But the truth is, you can put on a cool outfit and invite all your family and friends and stand in front of people and smooch, and then go and eat cake and listen to Yin Yang Twins and eat some food. And you can do that, and that's fine. But that doesn't guarantee you lifelong happiness. You can check that box, but that's not the same thing as marriage. Weddings are good, don't get me wrong, but marriage is different. That marriage is a long game. That raising a child is much more than throwing a baby shower and getting a crib and a stroller. That obviously there's birth, but then there's like a long commitment after that if you want to see that child become anything that's worth becoming. That you can't just show up. Maybe some of you are 8th graders. You're going to be 9th graders in the fall, so this is good for you to know. You're not just going to show up on your first day of high school and walk in, and they're going to hand you a diploma and let you walk across the stage. That's not how it works. Like in between the first day of freshman year and graduation, there's like a lot of tests and quizzes and homework and tears and fights and drama and like weird lunches that they make you eat at 10:30 in the morning. There's a process and there's time. And the Christian life is much less about these mountaintop moments, and it's much more about seasons of resilience. That to follow Jesus faithfully, it's something that will be lived out over time. That it's a journey, not a destination. What we just read was the story of some people who didn't have a lot of resilience on their journey. To catch you up to speed, what we're reading here, this is the story of God's people as they're exiting Egypt. This is called the Exodus, that they were slaves in Egypt and they were treated poorly by the Egyptians. And then God raised up this guy named Moses to lead God's people. And he tells Moses, I want you to go tell Pharaoh, set my people free. And Moses is scared at first, so he gets his brother-in-law, he goes with him, and Aaron goes with him. And then he eventually works up the courage and he tells him, Pharaoh, set my people free. And then Pharaoh's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And Moses is like, well, I don't know what to do now. So God sends 10 plagues and he shows his power over the gods that the Egyptians worship. And finally, Pharaoh relents. And so after Pharaoh relents, God's people get together and they get all their stuff and they start heading out of Egypt and they start heading to a place and they get to this body of water called the Red Sea. And about that time, Pharaoh decided, well, I didn't actually want them to go. So he changed his mind and Pharaoh starts chasing after him with his army. And so here God's people are between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army. And so Moses prays to God, and God has Moses raise his staff over the water. The water parts. God's people walk across it on dry land. They get to the other side. And then as Pharaoh's army is going through the water falls on top of Pharaoh and his army. They all drown. And now God's people are on the other side of that, in the wilderness, on their way to the land that God's promised them, called the Promised Land. And so quickly, what we see is they start to think back about how good they had it in Egypt. Like they start to miss slavery, because when they were slaves, they knew where their food was going to come from. That their stomachs start grumbling, and so they start to lose faith. As quick as it is for us, as easy as it would be for us to judge, this happens to us. I was listening to a podcast literally this morning, and they did this research about why people don't stay in church. Like they start in church, and then they grow up, and they leave church. And why is that? What's the number one reason? And the number one reason that people leave church, because they just stop believing. That it's not some dramatic moment. It's not some giant fallout. It's not some massive doctrinal issue, but that it's a once a week church attender becomes a once every other week, becomes a once a month, becomes I don't go to the discipleship group anymore, to they go from the person that's always ready to serve to the person who only serves when they're really asked. It's a quiet quitting. It's a slow fade. And this happens in our lives. We see it in student ministry, that we go to camp or we have an experience with God, and we come back on fire, and we're ready to charge hell with a super soaker, and we got all our friends together, and we're never going to sin again. And then life happens, busyness happens, and friends happen. And what I want us to know is that big moments are great, but the journey of following Jesus is much more about consistent faithfulness. And I know for my life, and what I hope for your life, is that we would be people who finish faithfully. That we get to the end of our lives and we look back and we see a journey with Jesus that, yes, it's had ups and downs. That, yes, it's had moments of successes and maybe moments of failures, but that we would get to the end and look back and see faithfulness, see long obedience in the same direction. I'm going to speak to you just for a couple minutes tonight. I want to challenge us for how we can make it to the end. To make it to the end of our lives. See a faithful journey with Jesus. I love the quote from Francis Chan is that he said that he doesn't, that he wants to die before his convictions. What he means by that is the things that he believes, he wants to have enough endurance in his body that it gives out before his endurance in the things that he stands for does. That he cares more about the convictions, the beliefs that he has than he does even about his own life. So how do we make it to the end? What are the things that we need if we're going to do the journey with Jesus for the long haul? Two things I want to challenge you with. Number one, I want to challenge you to trust God's power. I want to challenge you to trust God's power. Exodus 16, verse 2 through 3, the entire Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to him, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt. We sat by pots of meat and ate all the bread we wanted. Instead, you brought us into the wilderness to make this whole assembly die of hunger." Think about this moment. God's people had just watched God send these plagues that proved his power over the gods of the Egyptians. They had just witnessed this with their own eyes. First generation. These people, this had recently happened. These are the people that had just watched God part a body of water, and they walked across on dry land, and as soon as the Egyptians hit it, and they got all the way in there, the water fell on top of them. They had seen this. They had personal, first-hand experience of God's power. And they said, "I want to go back to slavery. That was better than this. I like that more." Here's what I want us to understand, that trusting God is a choice. It's something that you have to choose to do. And I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase, that's a choice, right? You ever see somebody wearing an outfit and you were like, that outfit, that was a choice, right? The thing that person did, that was a choice. Maybe the person they're dating, that's a choice, right? I want us to know that faith is a choice. It's a choice. It's something that we will choose, and that won't always be well received, that won't always be popular, that doesn't always make sense, but it is something we must actively choose to participate in. And I keep getting back to this point where I want us to consider, do we really believe all this? And if you don't believe all this Jesus stuff, that's okay. You're still welcome here. I still love you. I won't judge you. I really mean that. But if we really believe that this dude who fulfilled all these prophecies like Bo talked about last week showed up and he divided history, that this guy walked on water and healed sick people and, oh, by the way, raised from the dead. That's a crazy thing to believe. That's nuts. But if we really believe it, how much more should we choose to have faith in the mundane, momentary minutes of our life? That following Jesus requires faith. So do we trust that God has worked? Do we believe that God can move in our lives when it seems like he's not? I just want to encourage you to have some faith, to believe that even when we don't feel him, even when things don't seem like he is, God is still working, and God's people had forgotten his power. And this is why it's so important to share stories of what God's done, because I don't see anywhere in here in this story that anybody hopped up and was like, wait a second, before we go back to slavery, remember God, he just, parted the water? I bet he could probably feed us. Remember God, he sent all those plagues, maybe he could send us some food. But nobody does that. And so it's important that we are people who consistently share the stories of what God has done, because it encourages us, it reminds us, but also it builds the faith of those around us, so that we have to choose to trust God's power. That if you want to make it to the end, it will require faith in the middle. Listen, it won't always make sense. You're not always going to get neat answers. That the situations we go through in life won't always be tied in a perfect little bow where it all comes together and you're like, oh, that's exactly why all these things happen. You may never get answers. And I'm sorry, because that's not convenient and that's not comfortable, but I value being honest with you over pretending or lying to you to try and keep you convinced of something. I want you to know, life doesn't always make sense. Things don't always turn out like we would want or hope, but we are people that as people of faith who believe in Jesus, that choose to trust God's power. There will be a million moments of trusting Jesus along the way. That if you're a person who says, David, I want to stay in this. I want my faith to grow into my 20s and 30s. I don't want to lose it all when I go to college and chase the world. I don't want to fall out of church. And I want to be in this. I really believe this. I really want this. It'll take faith in a million little moments along the way. We have to choose to trust God's power. Second, I want to challenge us to be people who choose to trust God's plan. Exodus 16, verse 4 through 5, the Lord said to Moses, I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you. The people are going to go out each day and gather enough for that day. This way I will test them to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on other days. So God had told his people that on the seventh day they're to rest. And so he tells them, hey, every day get enough food for that day. But on the sixth day, get enough for that day and for your day of rest. And he tells them this specifically. He gives them his instructions. He tells them how he wants them to do it. It's reflective of what Jesus called us to pray in Matthew 6:11, to give us today our daily bread. And what I want us to see is that God's people had to surrender to doing things his way. And I think we have to ask the same question. Will we choose, even when it isn't what we want, even when it's not what everybody else is doing, we surrender our plans to God? We surrender and commit to doing it his way. Isaiah 55, verse 8 through 9, the Lord says, my thoughts are not your thoughts, and your ways are not my ways. This is the Lord's declaration. For as heaven is higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts are than your thoughts. And here's the good news. You ready for it? We don't have to have it all figured out. I know that some of you are feeling like maybe you've got it figured out a lot, but you don't, and that's okay. But here's the thing. I don't have it figured out. Not even close. And this is a secret, all right? You can't tell them that I told you this. Your parents don't have it figured out either. And we don't have to. And that's okay. Because God has it figured out. It's his plan that we trust. It's his way that we walk in. That God's people made the mistake of rationalizing something that God was supernaturally solving. That they only looked to their resources. They only looked to their understanding. They only relied on their plans. And God said, I'm coming through in a way that you can't understand, in a way that you can't comprehend, in a way that you don't see coming, in a way that you could never conjure up or make happen on your own. That's how I'm going to come through, but you just have to do it my way. So one challenge is to surrender to God's plan. I like to think of it like this. I want to challenge us to not be a firework. Y'all like fireworks? I'm from Alabama, so I love explosives. Fireworks are pretty. They get people's attention, right? It's hard not to watch them. They sometimes take people's fingers off and take people's eyes out. And they're really bright. People like them. They're exciting, and people still take pictures of them and post them on Facebook and on their Snapchat stories for some reason. And that's about how long fireworks last. That they're here, and they're shiny, and they're exciting, and everybody, oh, look at this. There it is. It's so cool, and it's so new, and it's so fresh. And so many people, their faith is a firework. And it burns bright, and it burns hot. As quickly as it's here, it's gone. And for me and myself, I decided that I don't want to be a firework. Maybe a firework gets some more attention, that maybe it's flashier and more exciting, that maybe it draws a little bit more of a crowd around it, that maybe some people stop and go, oh, that's so cool, that's so great. I'd rather just be a slow burn. That I would rather be something that puts out light and puts out heat and something that produces an aroma that pleases God. That no, it might not be the most attention-grabbing. That no, it might not be the most exciting. That no, it might not draw the biggest crowd. But I'd rather be something that when I get to the end, I look back and I see years of faithfulness, not a moment of explosion. The mountaintops are cool and the big moments are fun, but I want to be something that lasts. I want a faith that endures. I want a life that counts for more than just something that's gone as quickly as it shows up. Lord, I want a fire that never dies. I want an impact I want a light that shines for the long term. So how do we get there? What's the way that we make it to the end? It's faithful, intentional, long obedience in the same direction, that we trust God's power and we trust God's plan and we live our lives in the slow burn. Let me pray for you. Jesus, thank you so much. I pray that we would be a slow burn. Pray that we would be a people that don't live for the highlights, but that we live to be seen by you. We don't live to attract a crowd, that we don't live to draw people's attention, that we don't live for big moments, but Lord, that we live with intentionality, that we live faithfully, we live with long obedience, the same direction, day by day, moment by moment, we lean into you. Father, I pray for anyone here who's in this moment, in this room, and's never given their heart and their life to you. Maybe they're wondering about all this Jesus stuff, and maybe they're wrestling with what it means to them and what they want out of life. And if that's you, I just want to invite you and encourage you to just let go. To put your faith in Jesus and to trust in God's plan for abundant life, for eternal life. That you don't have to earn it. That you don't have to make it happen. That you can just fall, lean, find Him. If you're here and you're a follower of Jesus, I want to just challenge us to be people who are not living for fireworks. We just want to be a slow burn. We want to be a faithful source of light to the world around us. We want to release an aroma that pleases God with our lives, that we want to get to the end and see that we lived for the long haul. Jesus, we love you so much. Father, you're so good. We thank you for everything that you allow us to do. Pray that you help us to praise you in every area of our lives. It's in Jesus' name.